The Republican Party needs conservatives, but do conservatives need the Republican Party? Today we're taking a deep dive into where the two overlap and where they don't. Go back to this past spring, just a month or so after Mitt Romney secured the Republican nomination. Conservative author and Reagan administration veteran Craig Shirley wrote something that caught a lot of our eyes. Shirley said that the party itself had become nothing more than a vehicle to win elections, adopting whatever positions suit that cause at that time. And he made the case that such a strategy coexists with conservatism's unchanging principles. Quote, many conservatives have in fact decided that their beliefs have become permanently inconsistent with republicanism. This may be more apparent in 2012 than ever before. No offense to Romney, but he is the perfect nominee for the Republican Party in 2012 because he, like the GOP, has adopted a variety of positions over the years in order to acquire power. The Etch-a-Sketch comment was stunningly accurate. Well, here's what I said in response to that at the time on Morning Joe. When I read your column yesterday, I said, boy, if Mitt Romney loses, that's going to be the debate inside the Republican Party and the conservative movement.
It's going to be Craig's fault.
Yeah, but it's going to be the debate. Yeah.
Well, it's going to be the debate. What is it? Is it because Mitt Romney wasn't? I mean, this is going to be the debate. Is it because Mitt Romney wasn't a true blue conservative?
Right.
And what is the Republican Party going forward? Well, fast forward 6 months, and here we are. Mitt Romney gets beaten. Tea Party candidates Todd Akin and Richard Murdoch let Senate seats slip away. Establishment conservatives like George Allen and Josh Mandel, they go down to defeat. So where does the Republican Party go from here? A lot of GOP heavyweights, like Virginia Governor Bob McDonnell, who was here with me yesterday, says the problem isn't what Republicans are saying, it's how they're saying it.
We're still a center-right country. I think we've got to do a much better job on the tone of our campaigns and the way we communicate with new voters, with minority voters. But at the end of the day, our ideas, I think, on small business, on entrepreneurship, on limited government, on lower taxes, these are still the messages that work.
Well, that doesn't wash with many conservatives like Craig Shirley, who argue that when the party moves away from the right and towards the middle, it gets caught somewhere in between. I keep thinking about armadillos. He wrote, the GOP has in its history adopted every side of every issue like the Democrats. Actually, the party is only about the acquisition of power. This is the end itself, not the means to anything. Well, will the 2012 election mark the end of this marriage of convenience then between conservatives and the Republican Party? Craig Shirley is president of Shirley and Bannister Public Affairs, of course, a best-selling author. He's the author of several books particularly about Ronald Reagan, including Rendezvous with Destiny. Mr. Shirley?
Chuck.
Well, simple question. Conservatives, Republicans, do you believe a divorce is coming?
I think it's coming to a head. I don't know if there's a divorce coming, Chuck. I do know that the debate over Grover and the pledge right now, he's caught between two forces. He's caught between, on one side, the Washington establishment and the Democratic Party, which is pushing, obviously, for higher taxes and more government spending, and two versions of a Republican Party, one of the insiders and one of the outsiders. And the outsiders kind of represent the old Republican Party, which was to take power away from Washington and send it back to the states and the individuals. The new Republican Party represents the more recent strain of Bushism and new and big government republicanism. And so the question is that which side in that Republican Party? This fight really is not about the Democratic Party. What involves Grover is not about Grover. It's not about the pledge. It's about what the Republican Party is going to stand for going forward.
But there's something about the question is about a pragmatism here, and elections have consequences.
Sure.
And this wasn't a small victory for the president. It was a fairly significant victory, and on certain issues like taxes and stuff like that, it was pretty resounding in the exit polls. So Ronald Reagan supported tax increases 5 times. Ronald Reagan raised the national debt ceiling 18 times. Right. Ronald Reagan granted amnesty to illegal immigrants. Ronald Reagan extended Social Security, and Ronald Reagan saw the expansion of the federal government. But we can go through every one
of those, and I can explain how and why he did those things. I mean, his tax cuts were far bigger than his tax increases. And the so-called amnesty was in the time of the Cold War. We had a lot of people fleeing communism in Nicaragua and Central America and in Cuba. And even then, Simpson, Missouri had extremely strict regulations for gaining American citizenship, which were not enforced under the Bush administration.
But when does political, I guess the question I have for conservatives like yourself is and you talk about conservatism, the basis of it, part of it is to be inflexible.
Right.
Right.
Well, you say inflexible, I could say principled.
Oh, and that's fine. Right. But I think you wrote at one time that one of the marks of conservatism is these principles, and you got to be inflexible about it. But when does pragmatism ever come in? When do you say, you know what, I'm going to take 70%?
I suppose in a time of national crisis, you know, in time of war, during World War II or during the Civil Wars, is that we have to set aside certain things. We are not in that situation. Actually, these are relatively small problems. The problem with the Republican Party, as I said before, is that it's not making the case of its principles, which is about less government and more freedom, is that you see nothing coming from the Republican establishment.
Romney's entire message in the last 3 months of the campaign. Now, we can argue that he didn't do a good job the first 9 months. Boy, I think he was articulating it in a way I had not heard of.
I don't think that resonated much at all.
It didn't resonate, but he tried.
Well, if he tried, he didn't try hard enough. Let's put it that way. But you see, you know, whether it's Senator Simpson or anybody else, I saw him last night. Nobody is saying, now wait a minute. If we need all this money in Washington, shouldn't we audit the government programs that are asking for more money and see where the waste and fraud and abuse are, and see if we really need to ask the American taxpayer? And this is about the assigning of power, and Democratic Party and the Washington establishment have one view of power, and there's two views of power inside the Republican Party, and that's where we're going to see what happens.
I know you're hesitant to do this. Who's the future of the party then? In your view, who's the future of conservatism? Forget the party.
I don't know if there's any. I don't know if there's any individual. And frankly, I don't think it's a good thing right now to have one person.
You don't want one person carrying the.
I think there should be many people should articulate conservatism.
All right, Craig Shirley, I'm going to leave it there. Always like having your views on this, and we'll have you back. This fight for the soul, right? Who runs the Republican Party? Continue.